We're all looking for that edge, right? That way to really um, make things happen.
Yeah, whether it's in your career, maybe negotiating, just getting projects moving.
Exactly. And it often feels like the top players, they're using a different playbook somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're diving deep into a book that, well, it claimed to offer just that. Trump,
Mm-hmm.
The Art of the Deal. This version by Donald J. Trump with Tony Schwartz.
Right, the mass market one from 2005, though the original copyright was way back in 87.
And it was pitched as a common sense guide to personal finance,
Uh,
which is interesting framing.
it is. And just to be clear, our goal here isn't really a book review, is it?
No, not at all. We want to dissect it, pull out the key strategies, the mindset, maybe some of those surprising stories.
Think of it like getting the core insights, but, with our discussion layered on top to make sense of it all.
And it covers a lot of ground. It jumps from the day-to-day stuff to these big philosophies and then digs into specific deals.
Yeah, the structure is quite telling.
We're going to look at that dealing. A week in the life section first, just to get a feel for the pace described.
And then the famous trump cards, the elements of the deal, those core principles he lays out.
Definitely. We'll touch briefly on growing up for context, and then, get into the juicy bits, the actual projects.
From Cincinnati apartments to Atlantic City casinos, even that Wollman Rink story.
Right. So let's start with that week in the life. What really struck you about that opening chapter?
Well, the immediate thing is that line, I don't do it for the money.
Yeah, that jumps right out. It's all about the art of the deal, he says, and specifically big deals.
It frames it as like a game or a challenge he enjoys, almost like sport.
It definitely sets a tone, shifting the motivation away from just profit towards, I guess, creation and the thrill of it.
It's a powerful framing device for sure. What about how he structured his days? Or maybe he didn't structure them.
Right. The lack of structure. He actually says, I play it very loose. I don't carry a briefcase. I try not to schedule too many meetings. I leave my door open.
It paints this picture of someone just reacting. Very accessible, constantly available.
Makes you wonder, though, how much deep, focused work gets done in that kind of environment. It's very different from, say, your typical CEO schedule.
Absolutely, a real contrast. So let's look at that Monday he details. What kinds of things filled the day?
Oh, it was nonstop.
Yep.
First thing, 9 a.m., a call from Ellen Ace Greenberg, Bear Stearns, talking about maybe buying a huge block of Holiday Inn stock.
1 million shares, wasn't it?
Over 1 million shares, yeah.
Yeah.
And potentially making a run at the company. So, boom, high finance right away.
Sets the stage for the scale he's operating at. What was next?
Half hour later, 9:13, a call from Abraham Hirschfeld, another developer. But he wants political advice, whether to endorse Cuomo for governor.
So not even direct business. It shows the breadth of his network, maybe his perceived influence.
Yeah, it suggests that business, politics, they're all kind of intertwined in his world. What else from Monday?
Well, there was a call at noon, wasn't there? Jerry Schofeld.
Right. From the Schubert organization asking for a job recommendation. Again, totally different sphere. Shows the range of contacts.
And then the afternoon wasn't quite so glamorous.
No, 2 p.m. he's being deposed in a lawsuit. Something about a contractor issue at Trump Tower.
So it's not all deal-making. There's the messy reality of managing big projects and the inevitable disputes.
Exactly. Practical problems creep in.
What else stood out that day? Any smaller details?
The contrast was wild. Like 3 a.m., his lunch is just a can of tomato juice with his assistant. Super basic. But then 15 minutes later, he's calling Sir Charles Goldstein. Suggests, international connections.
It's that rapid switching. Mundane stuff 1 minute, high-level calls the next.
Definitely paints a picture of a very fluid, maybe demanding day. Did Thursday look similar?
Pretty much the same pattern, yeah.
Yeah.
Thursday morning kicks off with another call to Abe Hirschfeld about the governor's race.
We still on that.
Then Alan Greenberg calls again. Market update. Holiday core stock.
So keeping tabs on those big plays.
Then meetings. Harvey Meyerson, an attorney, comes in. Then Stephen Hyde from Holiday Inns itself.
Juggling all those different deals and relationships constantly.
Seems like it. Anything else from Thursday?
At noon, he mentions going to watch the concrete pour for the Wollman Rink.
Oh, right. That's interesting. A bit more hands-on than you might expect, amidst all the calls.
Yeah, suggests he'd like to, see the physical progress too, not just the phone calls.
Which is actually a nice segue into the trump cards, the elements of the deal. After seeing that fast pace, what are the core principles he lays out?
Well, the main philosophy seems boiled down in that quote. My style of deal making is quite simple and straightforward. I aim very high, and then I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get what I'm after.
Simple and straightforward, huh? It sounds more like relentless ambition. Aim high and just keep pushing.
That's the vibe. Very assertive. So let's look at those cards. First one, think big.
Okay, what does think big mean in this context? Is it just about scale?
It seems like it's scale, but also about having a vision that grabs attention, creates buzz.
Yeah.
The book uses examples like the giant skyscrapers, the casinos, big, visible, high-profile stuff.
Like the Atlantic City deals weren't just about building a casino, but creating a whole spectacle.
Exactly. It's almost presented as, if you aim big, you attract bigger things, more attention, maybe better opportunities, like a self-fulfilling thing.
Interesting. So scale and audacity. The next card is protect the downside and upside will take care of itself. That sounds almost cautious.
Yeah, it's basically risk management. The idea is structure your deal so your potential losses are limited.
Okay.
If you cap the downside risk, then any upside you get feels like a bigger win, and maybe you feel safer pushing for it.
So it's a way to be aggressive but still have a safety net. Manage the risk so you can aim high.
That seems to be the logic. It gives you confidence to keep pushing.
Okay, makes sense. What about maximize your options?
That's about flexibility. Don't get locked into one path. Always explore multiple possibilities. Be ready to pivot.
Optionality.
Exactly. The more options you have, the more leverage you have. You don't get backed into a corner.
Keeps you in control. The next one is know your market. Now, his approach to this is distinctive, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's less about, spreadsheets and surveys.
Right. More gut feeling.
A lot more gut feeling. Intuition, direct observation, what he thinks people want, especially with branding and public perception. It's very instinct-driven.
Which, raises questions about instinct versus data in big decisions. How reliable is gut feeling alone?
Good question. Next principle. Use your leverage. How does he define and use leverage?
Leverage seems to be any advantage you have. Could be assets, money, information.
Or even just understanding what the other side needs or their weaknesses.
Right. Identifying that advantage and then, exploiting it in the negotiation. Using your power strategically.
Makes sense in negotiation.
Yeah.
What about enhance your location? That feels very real estate focused.
Absolutely central. The book hammers home the idea that prime location is fundamental. It's not just a feature, it's the core driver of value.
Worth investing heavily in, worth fighting for. Like getting that spot next to Tiffany's for Trump Tower.
That's the classic example, yeah. Location, 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 but maybe supercharged.
Okay, then comes deliver the goods after all the tough talk and negotiation.
You still have to follow through, yeah. Despite the hardball tactics described, the book acknowledges that ultimately you need credibility.
You have to actually build the thing, fulfill the promise, turn the deal into reality.
Builds your reputation for the next deal, presumably. Next up is contain the costs. Seems pretty standard.
It is, but the book presents it as a really intense focus. Not just cutting costs blindly, but being smart about spending, getting maximum impact, value for money without cheapening the image.
Efficiency and value, but maintaining that prestige. Okay. And the last card, have fun.
Yeah, bit surprising maybe alongside the others. But the argument is that passion, enjoying the process, is actually a driver of success.
Like if you don't enjoy the game, you won't have the energy to keep pushing.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That enthusiasm is presented as an asset itself. Infectious, maybe.
Interesting. Okay, moving on briefly to growing up. What were the key influences mentioned?
The biggest one is clearly his father, Fred Trump. Lessons about toughness, hard work, how to motivate people, just getting things done.
Practical, street-smart lessons, it sounds like.
Very much so. But there was also this clear drive to do something bigger, more glamorous than his father's business in Queens and Brooklyn. He wanted Manhattan.
So, a foundation in practical building, but with sights set much higher. Any early deals mentioned?
Yeah, there's a story about building a house with his father right after college, Wharton, and selling it for a small profit, like $7,500.
A first taste of development and deal-making on his own?
Seems like it, an early sign of that entrepreneurial drive.
Okay, let's shift to those project case studies. They really illustrate these principles in action. First, the Cincinnati kid. Prudence pays. What was the play there?
This was buying a big, troubled apartment complex, Swifton Village. Like 1,200 units, really high vacancy rate.
Distressed asset, basically.
Exactly. Bought it relatively cheap, under $6 million. The idea was it had potential, but needed fixing. Invest a bit in renovations, maybe $800K, then market it aggressively.
So, value investing in real estate, what was the management approach?
Very hands-on. Back to basics. Fill the vacancies, maintain the property, keep tenants happy. Understand the local market. Not flashy, just solid execution.
Prudence pays, as the chapter title says. Okay, next. The move to Manhattan. A big leap.
Huge leap. The challenge was just getting a foothold in that expensive market. The book talks about networking, joining the right clubs like Le Club.
Building connections.
Right, making himself known. The goal was clearly to become a major Manhattan developer, not just doing small deals. Getting access to people like Roy Cohn was part of that early strategy.
So, laying the groundwork, building social capital to get to the bigger projects.
Seems like it. Those early steps, proving he could operate there, opened doors later.
Okay, how about Grand Hotel, reviving 42nd Street? That sounds like a massive undertaking.
It was. The old Commodore Hotel near Grand Central. It was run down, losing money, and 42nd Street back then wasn't great.
Not the desirable location it is now.
No. The vision was a total revitalization. But it needed complex maneuvering bankruptcy courts and, crucially, getting big tax breaks from the city.
So public-private partnership leveraging incentives.
Exactly. That tax abatement was apparently key to making the whole thing work financially. Shows the importance of navigating politics and finance, not just construction.
Definitely. Next up, Trump Tower, the Tiffany location. Probably the most famous one.
Iconic, and a perfect example of enhance your location. Getting that land and the air rights next to Tiffany's was incredibly complex.
Deals on top of deals, presumably.
Yeah, negotiating with Bonwit Teller, multiple parties. The vision was that mix of super luxury apartments and high-end retail, right on Fifth Avenue. A statement building.
And even the controversy, like the demolition of those sculptures, became part of its story, part of the buzz.
Right. It highlights that complexity of prime real estate assembly and maybe a willingness to push boundaries, even stir controversy to get the result.
Okay, let's head to Atlantic City. Gaming. The building on the boardwalk. Entering the casino world.
Yeah, another big shift. Late 70s, early 80s, Atlantic City was a huge gamble itself. Highly regulated, lots of competition.
High stakes?
Very. It involved complex financing, buying control of the Commodore Hotel stock to rebrand it as Trump Plaza, and that battle with Hilton over another boardwalk site.
Sounds like a really aggressive, competitive environment. Leverage would be key there.
Absolutely. Making a big entrance, trying to dominate quickly.
Okay, one last case study, the sort of unusual one. Icecapades. Rebuilding Wollman Rink. Why take that on?
It's presented almost as a civic gesture, born out of frustration. The city had failed for years to fix the rink in Central Park.
Right, it was a bit of a public embarrassment.
So the book says he stepped in, offered to do it faster and cheaper, basically to show how the private sector could get it done when government couldn't.
So part publicity, part demonstrating competence. Less about direct profit.
That's how it's framed. And the result, as told in the book, was a success finished quickly, under budget, reinforcing that narrative.
These cases really do show the principles in action across different scenarios. So looking back at the whole book, what are the big recurring themes for you?
Well, ambition, obviously, just a relentless drive for bigger, better. Persistence is huge too, pushing through obstacles.
And the negotiation style.
Yeah.
Very aggressive.
Definitely. Pushing boundaries. And also this constant focus on brand building, image, public perception.
Yeah.
That seems vital to the whole strategy.
And we talked about instinct, that reliance on gut feeling and self-confidence over maybe deep analysis sometimes.
Absolutely. Trusting your judgment, having that unwavering self-belief is presented as essential.
And it's important for you listening to remember this is one perspective, one person's account of their deals and philosophy.
Exactly. It's fascinating insight into one approach, but it's not the only way, and maybe not applicable everywhere or for everyone.
So wrapping up our deep dive into the art of the deal, we've gone through the week, the cards, the background, the big projects. Hopefully that gives you a clearer picture of the book's core ideas and stories.
Yeah, hopefully it's a useful shortcut to understanding what's inside. And now maybe a final thought for you to consider. Thinking about these principles, think big, use leverage, protect the downside, have fun even. How do they land today? In our current business world, with maybe different ethical lines, different technologies, a different media landscape, which of these tactics still feel relevant?
That's a great question.
Which ones might need serious rethinking, or maybe just don't fly anymore? It's worth thinking about how those rules of the game from '87 might apply, or really not apply, to whatever you're trying to achieve now.
Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.